came around.
So smart.
So we're alive. So it says. Welcome everyone. This is a evening talk, and I'm going to do a little bit of sutta reading as well. And I thought we would start just with a few minutes anyway of welcome Jayanta, welcome to everyone who may be here live as well. Live for now. I always say that. We never know when our time will be up in this existence. So let's get into a comfortable position, and we can sit just for a few minutes. I have a furry friend who's trying to get into a good position too, so he might bump the, yeah. Would you take him? Could you take him? So get yourselves in a comfortable position, and with your eyes closed. And just feeling the position of the body, an upright position if possible. However, you can position yourself to maintain some alertness. Awareness of the body. You might sense the weight of the body. And just getting a general sense of the wholeness of the body. And just bringing the awareness to the gentle rhythm of the breath that expands and contracts the body. Sorry for that sound. I don't know. Sometimes the bell has a very tinny sound. The mic doesn't pick up all the resonance. But we just had a few minutes of meditation to start. And really basic, often taught meditation is a mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness of the body. And you'll notice when you're sitting, there's a tendency for the mind to bring up thoughts. And this is the nature of the mind. And the mind thinks its job is to think. So don't despair. But I think one thing is that we're developing is awareness. So not only are we aware of the breath, but what's coming up in thought and the quality of the thoughts that are coming up. And also this kind of reflects the quality of our minds and the inclination of our minds. So it's a gradual path, and through observation, we start to let go or abandon what's harmful. We start to identify that, and then we start to cultivate, bring up what's beneficial. And then we'll start eventually discovering pure states of mind, silence. We'll start being able to dwell a little bit more in the mind that doesn't have that verbal chatter. So that's a little bit of a reflection on what meditation, one of some of the aspects of meditation. So tonight, there's various kinds of meditation. There's various kinds of reflections that we can do that are helpful on the path. And one of the frequently recommended reflections is our mindfulness, types of mindfulness is mindfulness of death, maranasati. So I take walks every day in the neighborhood, and it's October, so actually starting in September, I started to see, decorations, witches and skeletons and things like that appearing in people's yards and their lawns, and their decorating their houses. And so starting the very beginning of October, all of a sudden there's a kind of like a sudden kind of explosion of displays. There's I think the skeletons are the ones that are or skeletal parts of the body, like the hands coming up out of the ground, things like that. This is like the most popular. I don't know if this is just this year, this phenomena, or this, but in this neighborhood or what. But so it's kind of interesting, this tradition we have in this country, and how I think it may have come from Dia de los Muertos, Latin countries, Latin American people celebrate, and it's and so they do have the skeletons dressed up, doing all kinds of things that would normally human behavior but like maybe partying more, like playing marimba and dancing and things like that. So this is my mother's theory anyway, that it came from that. And somebody else may correct me. But anyway, so I walk through the neighborhood and I just start contemplating this whole phenomena of Halloween and these decorations and you know, skeletons represent death. You know, if you see a bottle that has a skull and crossbones on it, you wouldn't drink what's in the bottle because it probably means it's deadly, right? So it's a kind of a representation of, well, you know, what's left after a number of years if a body is left out is the bones. So this is kind of a reminder of our mortality. Another thing that I've seen in the yards is gravestones, and that's definitely representing death, right? So and then they have these you know, rest in peace, R.I.P. And then there's something, they'll have something humorous on the gravestone. And so one of the gravestones said, "Shoulda, woulda, coulda." And I kind of laughed at that, and I just thought about that. It was so this is kind of trying to be humorous, right? And then so you imagine this person that who's no longer alive, maybe a corpse down in the ground, you know, thinking, "Oh, I should have done that. I would have done it, but I could have done it, but I didn't," and things like that. So, but I thought about that, and I thought, well, of course, the corpse couldn't be thinking that. Maybe the spirit, the ghost, or something. But in reality, there are people at the end of their lives that do think this way, that they do have a lot of regret about what they might have done, what they could have done, but they didn't do, what they left undone. They would have done it, and they have all these other excuses about it. They could have done it, but there's all these things in the way and all this. But I should have done it. So that kind of thing, that kind of thinking, especially as we're getting older, but often on the deathbed, there could be a possible way somebody's going. The cat is trying to sabotage the computer. So if we're no longer live after a while, it might be the cat. So there's a lot in the Buddha's teaching about how to avoid that, how to avoid regrets at the end of our lives. And he often is addressing the bhikkhus. There's one sutta I'm going to read from is addressing the monastics, but we can take these teachings no matter what our walk of life is. And so if we reflect on the fact that we don't know when the moment of death will come, that we could die unexpectedly. This is one of the teachings. We should also reflect frequently that this is the nature of this body. You know, having been born, we die. But the fact that we might die unexpectedly is something we should think about frequently. And not only that we would die unexpectedly, but it may be that somebody that we care about may die unexpectedly. So this should help us. If I think I'm upset or angry with somebody, and I think that either one of us could die suddenly, I would be more motivated to resolve the problem In fact, this happened one time where a friend, there was a misunderstanding with a friend, and she was like really angry at me. And we were both about to go in different directions by, in cars in different directions. And then I just said to her, please, let's try to, please forgive me. I didn't think I made a mistake. She thought I made a mistake, but I just wanted to resolve it. And it says that, I'd rather not part angry at one another. So then she did calm down. I didn't leave until she at least calmed down. And I wasn't asking her to forgive. I was asking her to forgive me, but I was also just wishing that we could resolve it at this moment. So anyway, so we parted, and nothing actually happened. And then we did get back to one another. But I had this really strong feeling that if we didn't resolve things, that anything could happen. So I think, and I did have another experience where I left, and I phoned this dear person and told them that I loved them. And that was the last time I spoke to them. It was on the phone. I mean, we parted kind of angry at each other, but then I was so grateful that I was able that I thought to call them and to tell them that I cared about them. It was an older relative. So just knowing that we're all mortal, we should really care not to leave anything unresolved. So I'm going to just say a few more words and then go to the sutta, and then we can open it. So I wrote a few things down. So to avoid regret, we should also consider that we have this precious opportunity, and to live well, not waste our time, make the best of our time that we have. And like I was saying, to make amends and to forgive as much as possible. Try not to leave anything unresolved, but also examining our own minds and abandoning any unwholesome mental states that arise, and cultivating the wholesome. So if we live our lives well, then we won't have regret at the end of our lives. So I'm going to read from Sutta Central. I have Bhante Sujato's translation of, it's a second teaching on Maranasati that's in the Anguttara Nikayas. It's 2 in a row. So it's I have the number there, AN 6.20, and it's titled Mindfulness of Death. And it's also, I think that's the exact same title that Bhante Bodhi, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, has translated it the same way. At one time, the Buddha was staying at Jnānika in the brick house. There, the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, when mindfulness of death is developed and cultivated, it is very fruitful and beneficial. It culminates in the deathless and ends with the deathless. So he's that's another name for Nibbana. And how is mindfulness of death developed and cultivated to be very fruitful and beneficial, to culminate in the deathless and end in the deathless? As day passes by and night draws close, a mendicant reflects. I might die of many causes. A snake might bite me, or a scorpion, or a centipede might sting me. And if I died from that, it would be an obstacle to me. So before they go to sleep, this is actually something that it's recommended for the monastics, but for anyone to just, well, we have to go a little bit further than this to say what we're supposed to do. So first we reflect that we can die of many causes. And if you're camping out, you might encounter snakes and scorpions and so on. But even in your own home, something might happen. And so if I died, that would be an obstacle to me. So if we haven't cultivated our minds, we haven't abandoned the unwholesome qualities, might be a big problem. Or I might stumble off a cliff, or get food poisoning, or suffer a disturbance of bile, phlegm, or piercing winds. So I think maybe this is talking about the next day this may happen, but I think in the night a person could die of many causes. Many people actually die from heart failure and other causes in the night or early morning. That mendicant should reflect, are there any bad, unskillful qualities that I haven't given up, which might be an obstacle to my progress if I die tonight? So, and suppose that upon checking, a mendicant knows that there are such bad, unskillful qualities. Then, in order to give them up, they should apply intense enthusiasm, effort, zeal, vigor, perseverance, mindfulness, and situational awareness. This is Sati Sampajanya, the last two. And the Sampajanya is sometimes translated as clear comprehension, and Bhante Sujato like situational awareness. That's hard for me to say quickly. Situational awareness. So clearly comprehending or aware of what's going on moment to moment. I think it has both meanings. So checking, this is an interesting point. How would you know? Just looking at your own mind. And I've heard the instruction to reflect back upon your day and just think about, is there any activities through body, speech, and mind during the day that were motivated by greed, hate, or delusion? So this is the inclination of the mind. If you see, oh, I was getting angry a lot. Oh, I was acting in a greedy manner. Oh, I was distracting myself a lot with various things. So you can look that way. I mean, it's hard to just, and then another thing is that when you're lying there quietly in your bed or meditating on your cushion before going to bed, you see what's arising in the mind. What is the tendency of the mind? What is coming up? And so you may see unwholesome mental states arising. So the Lord Buddha is saying, suppose that upon checking, the mendicant knows there are bad or unskillful qualities, and then in order to give them up, they should apply intense enthusiasm, effort, zeal, vigor, perseverance, mindfulness, and situational awareness. This sounds quite strong, doesn't it? A lot of the meditation teachers is, just let the thoughts come and go, and but if you have a really strong ill will or really overwhelming greed coming up, what can we do? Do we just let the greed overtake our mind, or the hatred overtake our mind? No. So there's lots of ways of dealing with the, for anger, for instance. First is you have to identify it. And the best thing to do is identify it early on and not let it become overwhelming. So you would start identifying irritation, complaining thoughts, and just really make an effort to not invest in them, not engage in them, not allow them to overwhelm the mind. I think a lot of times if you just say, oh, there's anger, oh, there's ill will, and this is not beneficial, this is not helpful. And you can also bring awareness to the body too when you're feeling angry, or if you're feeling strong desire, how uncomfortable the body feels. So just like keeping it on your radar and just and watching it and not feeding it. It's like maybe there's the kindling there, but you don't want to light the match. You want to scatter the twigs. So effort, zeal, vigor, perseverance, enthusiasm. That's pretty interesting words for dealing with the unwholesome mental states. But you're very enthusiastic about purifying the mind. It's just be like if you're cleaning house and you see a bunch of rubbish, and you really get enthusiastic about getting things clean. So there's some repetition here. I'm not sure. Okay, in the same way, in order to give up those bad, unskillful qualities, that mendicant should apply intense enthusiasm, effort, zeal, vigor, perseverance, mindfulness, and situational awareness. I think Bhante Bodhi says clear comprehension. Is that how he's translated it? Someone else has the hard copy. But suppose that upon checking, a mendicant or anyone knows that there are no such bad, unskillful qualities that a mendicant should. They know that there's not those bad, unskillful qualities that are not there. Then that mendicant should meditate with rapture and joy, training day and night in skillful qualities. So if one is meditating and they're able to abandon the unwholesome, and they notice the mind is calm and peaceful, and there's nothing unwholesome coming up. And that's really the time to go deeper into the meditation practice. So the heart is light when we're not burdened by all those unwholesome qualities. So joy and rapture should naturally arise. But we can also, it's a natural process that happens. But to bring up the joy, there's ways of bringing up the joy and rapture. If it doesn't naturally come up, he's saying that we should, I'm not sure, how does Bhikkhu Bodhi translate that sentence?
Which phrase?
It says, if there's no such unskillful qualities, then that bhikkhu is probably saying should dwell or abide or something like that.
Yeah, he should dwell in that same rapture and joy, training day and night in wholesome qualities.
You should dwell in that
same rapture.
In that same rapture. So what you're noticing. Well, you'll notice the buoyancy and you'll notice the joy coming up. So can cultivate it by just your awareness of it to bring it up. Or else, we're continuing, as night passes and day draws close, a mendicant reflects. So this is talking about, so we've, before going to bed, I know this person has gone to bed and now they're waking up. And they also reflect, I might die of many causes. A snake might bite me, or a scorpion or a centipede might sting me. And if I died from that, it would be an obstacle to my progress. Or I might stumble off a cliff or get food poisoning or suffer a disturbance of bile, phlegm, or piercing winds. So this is just pretty much the same as before, exactly the same. And if I died from that, it would be an obstacle to my progress. And then that mendicant should reflect, are there any bad, unskillful qualities that I haven't given up, which might be an obstacle to my progress if I die today? And then he's talking about checking again, just as before. If there's any unwholesome qualities, then they should make an effort. And then in order to give them up, they should apply intense enthusiasm, effort, zeal, vigor, perseverance, mindfulness, and situational awareness. So it's the same in the morning. So I imagine this may be the morning meditation, but also making a determination during the day to be mindful of what is coming up, I think is very helpful. And the same about checking, there are no unwholesome states, then that mendicant should meditate with rapture and joy, training day and night in skillful qualities. So that's quite wonderful if we can do that. So this seems to be a very basic teaching, to abandon the unwholesome and to cultivate the wholesome. But the mindfulness of death is an aid in this, that we can't waste time. We don't have time to waste. So I can open it up now for a little conversation or questions. Let's see, I'll say who Jayanta is here, Angelica, Mary B, P, Anota, Sudha, Julie, Manal, Jewel. Okay. So I don't see any question except for the one came in when I was giving the guided, I gave a very, very, very brief guided meditation, and I was just somebody sending flowers or something. I don't know what that is. Looks like flower stamps. So I gave a brief, very brief guided meditation. But I think this sutta gives us some instructions here where we can observe the mind carefully and just be aware of what's arising in the mind. And if we identify unwholesome states, that in itself can help us abandon them. The sooner we notice these flickerings of negativity or whatever it is, and then you'll start to notice, what is the tendency of my mind? What is my what and what is my primary defilement? What is my what is a some people have stronger tendencies in either greed, hate, or delusion, one of them. So you might notice that this is a stronger tendency for me. And then we can choose, like if you notice that anger or resentment or something, it seems to be predominant in the mind, we can choose what's called an antidote. We can be developing loving kindness meditation to help counter that. But if the thoughts that arise are just kind of like very wispy or just kind of random, just like, oh, I forgot to mail that letter or something, then we just kind of notice that, oh, just thinking, just to let it pass. So does anyone have any questions about this? Kilaya, yes?
You may have to repeat my question for them. They might not be able to hear it. But I'm just wondering, what would be is there a problem if I have say, greed or lust, or I'm distracted and I go to sleep? Like, that seems to be the answer to solving those things. Like if I go to sleep in any of those states, like they disappear. I'm not feeling those states while I'm sleeping. So should I be happy about going to sleep when I have those states? Like, is that a good resolution of them?
So there is a question about whether if you have greed, hate, or delusion, and you notice that that's going on, and then you manage somehow to go to sleep, and then is that a way to resolve the
particular to this what we're talking about, this
I think in order to go to sleep, you probably have to calm your mind to a certain extent, and you're going to have to let go. Like if you're overwhelmingly having some greed for something, it might just keep you awake, or you might go out and like have a beer or whatever it is, piece of cake or something like that. I want to mention anything more than that, but if you're just really angry, usually you can't sleep. So if that's happening and you say, oh wow, or I'm feeling very distracted, I actually metta bhavana is my go-to place, and I start saying metta phrases. If I'm anxious, if I'm something upsetting happened to me, I can't go to sleep until somehow the mind is calmed. So the ability to go to sleep, unless you're just really exhausted and you die from your exhaustion. I don't know. You're so exhausted you fall asleep, but you're having this, then you're likely to have bad dreams, I would think. Or you wouldn't sleep well. But I think that the fact that you are able to go to sleep means you've calmed the mind to a certain extent.
Okay. I was just confused because I was wondering, at some point I wondered, is the Buddha asking about how I feel about death? Like I should be going to sleep, making sure that I'm okay dying? Or is it is it the problem like feeling greed for tomorrow? Like say I have a big day and I think, oh, I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow. And, or I'm angry at someone and I'm going to attack them tomorrow. And, or is it the problem that I'm going to sleep not prepared to die? In other words, that would be the problem, is if death comes to me at night and I'm not okay with that, then I'm really in trouble.
I think both.
Both. Okay.
So the question was about, is it just to resolve having mindfulness of death to abandon unwholesome intentions? He was talking about going out, and if I'm so angry, I feel like I go out and kill somebody, or I'm so overwhelmed with greed that I'm hoping to win the lottery. So maybe I'm going to break my bank account buying lottery tickets all over town. I don't know. So you're plotting greedily what you're going to do. So the mindfulness of death is to prepare us if, because we could die at any time, but it's a motivation to say, hey, I really need to clean up my act here because I could die at any time. So I think most people that are meditators would maybe already starting to calm down the greed and hatred to, not to some extreme like you were saying, but you get sensitive to more and more subtle states, that are, in the greed and hatred category. And then, but that's still an obstacle. It's talking about this unwholesome states are an obstacle. They're an obstacle for purifying the mind. They're an obstacle to awakening. So it works in two ways.
So you want to die without those obstacles.
You want to die without, you want to be able to, if you're on the path, these are obstacles to the path. If you're just living a worldly life and you don't care, you're not going to be, you're not going to be doing this practice. But this practice is for helping you with the purification of the minds. So you're able to go as far as you can in this lifetime towards awakening, and just realizing we don't have time to waste, because a lot of people just, or other things are more important. And but especially I think that this is at night before we go to bed, and then when we wake up. And I can even, when I look at this, I thought, well, maybe this is actually before going to bed. We're sitting up and meditating and doing this. And then when we lay down, we're going to carry that meditation in, just the determination to wake up at a certain time is what the Buddha recommends. But we're still aware of the mind, aware of maybe some teachers say to keep your meditation object and being aware of the breath or the metta bhavana, even when, you're laying down, and as soon as you wake up, I don't know, was it Powak? One of the traditions, they say that you go to the interview and the teacher will say, when you woke up, were you breathing in or were you breathing out? Were you aware of your breath? What was your breath doing? So, yeah, and some Bhante Gunaratana says that when he's waking up in the morning, he starts with the metta bhavana right away, and he brings that too, starting with himself. He said, it's kind of cute. He said something like, we're wiggling around in the bed trying to wake up. You're still kind of half asleep and you're still. So, yeah, so to bring that kind of cultivation at all times. And that's where I say also throughout the day, being aware of what's arising in the mind. And then, so we're abandoning the unwholesome and trying to cultivate the wholesome as much as we can throughout the day.
So I'm getting then that I want to make sure that I'm not going to die with greed, hatred, or delusion. That's what we're shooting for with this. Like that's what I'm trying to avoid in this situation, dying with those states of mind. Like dying in anger, or I'm angry that I'm dying, or I'm sad because I'm leaving something behind, or I want more.
So to have a peaceful state of mind when that's the shoulda, woulda, coulda thing that so if we have things that are unresolved, but that doesn't mean that I'm regretting that I didn't make $1 million because we're going to leave all that behind anyway. But it's more is the state of mind that we aren't overwhelmed with greed or hate or delusion when we're dying. And then if we die suddenly, if we're cultivating all the time and we're abandoning unwholesome qualities and trying to bring up wholesome qualities, the chances are that we will die with a pure state of mind or wholesome state of mind.
Unafraid. So it's basically about fear. Like if we have a fear of death, then we're not going to die peacefully, right?
Yeah, well, you don't have anything to fear if you've abandoned greed, hate, and delusion. You won't, if you really, really abandon them, because you're not clinging. The clinging, all three of those are rooted in clinging to something.
So you're talking about something deep levels of, not just like surface levels of.
You're clinging to being, you're clinging to life, you're clinging to identity, a person, I'm not saying you particularly, but this is what we're clinging to is existence, identity.
So clinging is really the unwholesome state then in this case.
Well,
clinging describes in general what the problem with these unwholesome states is, that they are causing us to cling.
Well, yeah, well, ignorance and clinging are like they kind of work in synergy. I don't. They reinforce one another, and then so clinging is obviously greed, but clinging is also behind anger and hatred.
So going to sleep then would not be a good idea.
If you're going to sleep, I mean, if you're just, yeah, I mean, like I'm really angry and I'm gonna take a sleeping pill and down a beer, and then and then I can forget about what I was angry about. That's just kind of like, yeah, that's feeding delusion there. It's just like, yeah, checking out because.
Yeah, because I know when I'm sleeping, like I don't want to be disturbed. But if I'm awake, I'm more likely to be okay with being disturbed. But when I'm sleeping, I don't want anyone near me or touching me or anything, like much less dying.
We don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. If we're alive, when we're alive, we have no choice if we'll be awake or asleep when we die.
So I had a question.
Yes.
From a sutta, vague memory of this, but I thought the Buddha was talking about mindfulness during the day, of how short, and he talks to different monks and asks them like how long, I forget what
That's the
Oh, that's
prior
it, that's-
sutta.
This is, this is mindful of death 2,
okay.
and you're talking about mindfulness of death 1.
Okay.
And so the Buddha is questioning the monks, what is mindfulness of death? And let's see, we can get it so that I'm not fumbling with the, let's see what it,
The first one says, "May I live just a night and a day, so that I might attend to the teaching."
Right. And then it gets
it
shorter
gets
and
shorter and shorter and
shorter.
shorter. May
It's
I
like,
May I live a day so that I can attend to the teaching. May I live as long as it takes for me to eat a meal. And may I live, and it's probably 6 because it's in
Yeah.
the 6s. But it gets shorter and shorter. And the last one is the last 2. One says that the length of time it takes to swallow food and the length of times it takes to take a breath. And I think it's inhale and exhale.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it just shows how actually each moment we should be applying ourselves.
Right. So that brings up a question of like the concept of death, and like he's not saying think about it, but so how would one incorporate that into practice? To be aware of it, but we're not obsessively thinking about
Yeah, I think to develop mindfulness of breath, he's talking about if only I had as long as it takes to chew and swallow 4 or 5 mouthfuls of food. And that's how this is a little bit curious. If only I had that length of, well, to think that I have such, I may die at any moment. There's the inhale and the exhale or the swallowing any moment. So that we're applying ourselves every moment to the practice. Instead of saying, oh, if I only had like 10 days in a 10-day retreat or something like that. Or if only, I had the whole day tomorrow. But really, we should be applying ourselves at every moment, that, cooking or sweeping or talking to people, mindful of all our activities. And this is what I was talking about throughout the day, being aware of the mind. What's arising in the mind? Is this helpful? Is this harmful? And then that helps guide our speech and guides our actions. And then another thing I meant to mention is our ethical conduct. If we keep our ethics really pure, then we won't be regretting when we're about to die that we've said some untruth, we've said something cruel, we've treated somebody cruelly, we die with a bad conscience. It's like, so so this awareness of what's arising in our mind prevents us from breaking our sila, breaking our basic ethical conduct. It keeps the speech and actions pure. So every moment, everything we're doing, we could just consider: is this a benefit to me and others, or is it harmful to myself or anyone else? And this is and then just aware, just really aware of the mind, aware of our actions.
Okay, yeah. So it's the sati of the practice rather than thinking, oh, nothing.
Well, it's a good reminder. I think that if we say, I could die in a breath, I could die swallowing a bite of food,
And if we die, we don't know if we're going to be able to continue our practice, right? If
Yeah.
we die not an arahant, we don't know where we'll go. And that could be the obstacle. Like we could end up somewhere really, really bad, and that would be a problem for us.
So that's why we have to try and purify the mind continuously. So I think that's the point, that our life expectancy is just as long as it takes for me to swallow this glass of this swallow of water. Not very long. So let's see. I don't know if it looks like somebody's tried to write. Are influxes the same as, and I don't see anything else. Influxes. There's influxes or asawas. And there's this is what we're attempting to destroy. It's the asawas. So there's the asawa, kamasawa, that's a sensual desire. And then there's a vijasua, which is the ignorance. And then there's being, for the desire for being.
Sometimes views, right?
Huh?
Sometimes it's listed views also.
And views is also included sometimes, but that's not the basic three. The views come in. They help reinforce the being, I think, because this is one of the our views and our identity is tied up in that, or tied up together. So, but I think there's more categories sometimes of defilements, but these are the desire for being, and ignorance and desire for sensuality are really the basic three asawas. So they're sometimes called taints, sometimes called influxes, sometimes called outflows. And then because of the Pali, that there's a discussion whether it's flowing in or flowing out. Inflows, outflows, influxes, outfluxes. But some people say it's both, and they're called cankers. And there's an idea of having a sore, an infected wound. So the infection goes into the body, and then also the infection oozes out. So it's going in two directions. And the idea of the defilement, harming ourselves and harming others, it can go in two directions, two directional. It comes out in our actions, and it's also coming in and kind of raising havoc internally. So someone is okay. I hope I asked Essay's question. She says thank you, because she wasn't able to, or he or she. Were they? Oh, somebody is just writing that their friend had died suddenly. I guess it's in the chat, so I can show it. There's a very topical reading. Lost a friend today who died suddenly from choking on food. It's very tragic for those left behind.
Wow.
Yeah. Um,
After the soup.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think people die more frequently of choking than we realize. Um, so yeah, so this is what the Lord Buddha is talking about. We just don't know. People that we care about could just suddenly die. It happens frequently. So taking care of ourselves and taking care of others as best we can. Um, yeah. So I'm smiling because I don't want to have the teaching seem like depressing. The Buddha doesn't talk about death and uh, dukkha for us to become depressed. Um, yeah, so we can rejoice in the goodness of our friends. It's sad that they die suddenly, but to think about all their good qualities, why they were an important person in your life, why they were a friend, and just rejoice in that. And this is a thing in Thai culture that people recollect the wholesome qualities, and then they also dedicate merit. They try to do wholesome deeds in the deceased person's honor to generate merit. It's for themselves and others. But so yeah, so it is sad, but we don't have to grieve long. We can rejoice also in their goodness and take joy in doing wholesome deeds, generous acts. So I think we can end, and thank you all for your kind attention. And I didn't take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha to start with, so I'll do that now. Namo tassa bhagavato arhato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arhato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arhato samma sambuddhassa. Bhuttam dhammam sangham namasa. Thank you all. Sleep well after